What is up, everyone? Talon here, and welcome back to the channel. This is a little unique of a circumstance because we've had some incredible news, and it is super important to me. So, what is the news? Yesterday, well, first of all, time of recording, 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and then we've had some news drop officially yesterday, and then was teased / leaked by accident on Thursday. So we've had some time within the kind of more niche communities to kind of digest this. But what's the news? If you guys are not familiar, first of all, we have a comeback with the gas blowback Vector. I've already dropped a video on the gas blowback Vector, the KWA manufactured one specifically, that was discontinued many years ago at this point. I still had my hand on one. It was unfortunately not the most well operating system, but it was the best that I could get. So part of the news was we are going to get an officially licensed gas blowback Vector here in the US. Again, we already have a battery powered system, an AEG, manufactured by Krytac with the CRIS official license. KWA did not have the CRIS USA license, so they got a cease and desist, so KWA was not able to make any more. Now, Krytac came out and they said, we're going to make a battery-powered system, and they've been super successful at it for a long, long time. My theory is that Krytac was actually kind of working closely / maybe smooching up to CRIS USA, especially since KWA kind of shot themselves in the foot with releasing that without having the official license. So I think Krytac, who has the CRIS license, or at least has the agreement and contract to distribute airsoft replicas with the CRIS license, might be working in conjunction with KWA to re-release a gas blowback variant here in the US again. And this has already caused a huge, huge disruption with the KWA used market. I'm going to talk about that in just a couple minutes. The other thing is the fact that the magazines are so similar from the screenshots of the Krytac listing compared to that of the original KWA OEM magazines, right? It wouldn't make sense for the magazines to be so similar but spec'd so differently. I would say maybe if this was 5 years ago, Krytac would definitely want to try to do their own thing and keep KWA out of it. Now within the airsoft industry, we're seeing a lot of these distributors and manufacturers work synonymously with one another, creating that relationship so that they can make something that works really, really well. Something that I was seeing 5 years ago, a lot of manufacturers were doing their own thing. And so you would get a lot of replicas that were very similar as far as the design and build. One example that I have is with the Glocks. We very famously was manufacturing a lot of Glock replicas. But once Elite Force came out with their Glock replicas, a lot of players wanting to get the officially licensed models that were manufactured significantly better wanted to utilize their original magazines. So I did have, for a long time, players with the Wii magazines coming in with their Elite Force Glocks and saying that they're getting a huge drop in velocity, they have very poor performance, they can't even get a full magazine shot from their system unless they use the original Elite Force Glock magazine that came in the box with the replica. And it's just as simple as WeTech, Elite Force, very different standards, very different manufacturers. Wow, how different they are. That's my one impression. But now we're seeing a lot of that relationship get built back together with all of these brands. So again, that's why I think Krytac is going with KWA for a lot of this. It's just going to cut down on logistics. It's going to cut down on all of the parts, going through the research and development of trying to get a system that works really well. It took KWA a long time to get their model built up. Why not work with KWA to have a partnership, if you will? So what we think happened is e-bike accidentally released a product listing for a pre-order for the gas blowback Vector, and we think they accidentally posted that a little too early. There was a couple of people that immediately got a bunch of screenshots of that eBic listing before eBic was able to pull it down, and I think in anticipation for the next day's Instagram post. So we think that the listing actually went up on Wednesday, and then yesterday they had on their Instagram posts a whole bunch of announcements that coming up with the Krytac owners meeting at CQB City or Tax City, one of those in California. I think they're going to go into more detail about the actual build and the features and functionalities of that gas blowback vector that's going to come out. Potentially maybe having a demo there at that Krytac owners meeting. But they've already made postings on their Instagram as well about, hey, there's this new thing coming out. Hey, remember how we don't have a gas blowback variant anymore? Well, here's something that might be coming out. And we see overseas with some of the Asian market distributors, a couple of listings for the magazines and for the gas blowback variant specifically. Because we haven't seen a whole lot of listings populate just yet, I'm not exactly sure who the listed OEM, but as of right now, my gut instinct is going to be KWA is going to be making it still again. Part of that theory is KWA already has all of the moldings, all of the construction, all of the sizing and specs for the manufacturing standards for the gas blowback variants. And they work super, super, super well. The one that I was demoing on this channel is, I had gotten that 2015. So it's almost, so for an almost 10-year-old airsoft replica, that's a gas blowback with all those moving components, it's holding up super, super, super well. So I don't think it would make sense for Krytac to go off and try to do their own thing, especially in a gas blowback system, since they sit so comfortably in the battery-powered space. So I think they might rely on KWA to assist them with the manufacturing of that gas blowback vector. And of course, it's going to have all the official CRIS licensing because Krytac is the one that's distributing it, not KWA at this point. But some unique features that I can glean from just the screenshots is first and foremost, the top flashlight mounting system that you would typically see on both the real KWA Vector as well as the airsoft replica that I was demonstrating. Both of those have a little mount that sits right above the barrel. That face, that front face of the Vector is completely flush. Now, it seems like it's a removable panel, so they might have an accessory specifically for that. It's a very Vector niche design, so I think it makes sense that they would have an option coming out for it. I really hope that they do come out with something because that's a very cool system that is implemented with the Vector body. The second thing I've noticed is that the trigger system itself is drastically different from the KWA Vector. This seems to be more in line with the more realistic Vector type of trigger, or at least maybe an aftermarket type of trigger. This may open up the possibility for a little bit more modifiable parts, but with how Krytac is going, or has been going historically, they haven't branched into, I would consider performance parts. Krytac typically is OEMing maybe more aesthetic parts, right? Maybe a flat face trigger compared to a curved trigger, compared to a skeletonized trigger, compared to a colorized, iodized trigger. You know, nothing that is like, nothing like the max speed triggers or the adjustable triggers or anything like that, because max would be considered, I would at least consider now that aftermarket performance modification parts, versus Krytacs are still OEM based and have little performance behind them, but they're more aesthetic by design. But there's several other systems that I'm enjoying with the screenshots of the Vector. The fact that there's more parts on the folding stock that are going to allow for a wider range of sling placement and configuration. Huge, huge fan of that. There's already been people that on Reddit are talking about how they absolutely want to bring back the 10-round magazines as well as the extended magazine options. Now with this as well, even though it's only been a couple of days since the kind of leak / early announcement, followed by the actual announcements from Evike's Instagram saying that this is coming out, a lot of the used KWA Vector sellers on HopUp have already dropped their selling point for all these used vectors to around 50%. And I'm like, yeah, go yourself, right? That makes me so happy. If you watched my original vector video, I spent probably too long and got maybe a little too emotionally invested into the fact that too many people are trying to sell these rare and unique gas blowback vectors from KWA that again are 10 years old at this point. Some players have definitely modified their vectors, have swapped parts components, have done crazy paint jobs, and some of these guys are trying to sell their vectors for $1,200, sometimes $2,000. And I'm like, that is insane, right? And I'm not going to go into a big spiel about it, but the fact that because there's this actual new one coming out and they want to get rid of theirs, they have to really drop their price point. And again, 10 years ago, if I remember correctly, the original Vector was selling for like $380, right? So the fact that even these rare and discontinued models are still selling for like $600, $500 now after the price drop, that's still insane, but it's significantly better than $2,000. Now, a point that really concerns me is I've owned Krytacs previously. I've had a Alpha CRB, like one of the first generation models, and albeit when Krytac first came out, like 3 years after they came out, I bought one of their Alpha series and it worked really, really well. I couldn't say enough phenomenal things. I couldn't have been more of a Krytac fanboy, but shortly after getting my Krytac, the quality control of a lot of these Krytac AEGs just dropped very quickly and just nosedived. So I'm really concerned about the direction that Krytac has gone with the consistency of manufacturing standards. I really want these to do really, really well. Now, I wholeheartedly am cautious. I've now gone a direction where I have a lot of KWA and I have a lot of Elite Four / VFC in my collection. So I am really down with KWA manufacturing standards. They're not designed for speed performance. They're designed more for reliability and durability, more than anything else, right? KWAs make up my Milsim guns that I am way too hard on, right? I am beating the shit out of them. So I would trust the KWA manufacturing to hold up and work really, really well. Something that concerns me is when Krytac specifically is head of what the kind of what the consistency of manufacturing is, right? If KWA's manufacturing standards are, hey, if we have 5 failures out of 1,000 guns, that's still a really good number. We can never get to absolutely 0, but 5 out of 1,000, that is really, really, really good. Krytac standards are nearly 70%. And I don't have any like hard numbers, but from working at an airsoft retail space, bringing in Krytacs and bringing in KWA replicas, I had a larger selection of KWA replicas that would get sold and very few would come back, right? And we would do the numbers out of so many 100, we could look at our RMA shelf and we could say 3 came back. Out of this bracket of time that we've sold hundreds, 3 came back. That is a really good number. That's a number that we can live with and get behind as a seller. When it came to the Krytacs, when I would order 8 and 3 made it onto the RMA shelf, that's not a good number, right? In that same time period where I'm selling all these KWAs, but I can only sell 8 Krytacs, not really good. So I'm not, as a seller, I wasn't really behind Krytac, and it just supported me as a player, suggesting KWA over Krytac, right? So as long as KWA is manufacturing these, I will wholeheartedly stand by it. but I want to make sure that KWA is also the ones that are behind mainly the research and development, as well as the consistency of the manufacturing, so that we can get the good, durable KWAs that I know they're going to make. I don't want to see like that huge return example that I've seen with Krytac. I don't want that to happen, because that's just going to muddy the Vector platform. It's also going to muddy Krytac's name again. And Chris USA is not going to like that whatsoever. So I'm really cautious, but I'm really hopeful at the same time. But ultimately, I am so excited to get another gas blowback Vector back in. I am a huge fan of gas blowbacks. If you couldn't tell with some of the most recent gameplay, or with this model in particular, this is my indoor gas blowback as of right now. So if we can get more players into that gas blowback world, and definitely get them replicas that they want to play with, like that Vector, let's get it to them, right? Let's get going. So I have no relationship with e-bike, I have no relationship with Krytac, but if anyone wants to send me a replica to do a review video on, maybe a local guy might be picking one up, be happy to do a comparison. I can get my hands back onto that old KWA OEM version and then compare it to the current Krytac distributed, or soon to be distributed, gas blowback. And we'll be able to identify fully and completely maybe who the OEM is. Again, I really want it to be KWA, and I don't know who else would make it. So that is going to bring us to the end of this video. I have nothing else to share with you guys. Leave a like, leave a comment, tell me about what your favorite gas blowback model is, or soon to come out. I am looking forward to the KWA AUG that's coming out. I've got another gas blowback AUG variant video dropping. Ooh, teasers coming soon. Whatever. You guys take care, stay safe, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy this one. Bye.